It's 9:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And might I say that I was going to be here anyway to talk about some of the other political issues going on. But we got interrupted by an American coup taking place. So here I am. I'm going to discuss this day, January 6, 2021. Certainly was not uneventful. As I said, today, January 6, 2021, an actual insurrection was orchestrated by some of Donald Trump's supporters. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of disclaimer, and the disclaimer is I'm not here to be partisan. I'm not here to say that every single person that voted for Donald Trump embraced this. I'm not here to say that this is indignant of the Republican Party as an institution. I'm not saying these things. All I'm saying is that there was an act of insurrection that took place today when today in the Senate it is to be confirmed that President-elect Joe Biden will officially be president. I want to add a further disclaimer for anybody who's listening to this for the first time, this channel that happens to be Republican leaning or an actual bona fide Donald Trump supporter, or shall I say reasonable Republicans, reasonable Trump supporters out there. I am not a Democrat nor a Republican. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016, and I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2020. Having that said, I did not vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I did not vote for Joe Biden in 2020. I am very, very much independent. So what I'm about to say, I'm not speaking as a partisan hack. And if it was done the other way around, and if Hillary Clinton would have orchestrated a coup in 2016, or Joe Biden would have done this in 2020, if Donald Trump would have been reelected, I would have been just as pissed off about it. So there's no partisan hackery done on my part. But the people involved with this failed coup, well, let me just also say this. They are entitled to their opinions. They're entitled to be in opposition within the constraints of the law against President-elect Joe Biden, just as within the constraints of the law that the liberals and left, which I'm a part of, the left, were opposed to Donald Trump during the last 4 years. In this constitutional republic or representative democracy, we are, as American peoples, allowed to have different opinions. We're allowed to express ourselves and express our freedom of speech is guaranteed by the First Amendment. And in my particular case, how I view the First Amendment, it applies equally to everyone. I am a First Amendment absolutist, and I make no apologies, except that the only problem I have with free speech in the First Amendment is that the First Amendment doesn't go far enough. I actually would make freedom of expression more broad than it is right now. But let me get back to what I was saying. While people are within their rights to oppose the new president, they do not have a right to violate the rule of law. Now, I understand that some of them think that the rule of law was violated because in their mind, they think that Donald Trump really won this presidential contest. Well, let me just set the record straight, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Do I think that there might have been cheating against Donald Trump? Sure. Do I think that there was cheating against Joe Biden by the Republicans? Sure. Both sides. And I know people don't like it, and they get irritated when somebody says both sides, but Both sides, it is what it is. Both sides engage in this sort of shenanigans. For example, in the year 2000, year 2000, I did not vote for Al Gore, and I didn't vote for George W. Bush. Um, I voted third party, as I normally do. I have been voting third party most of my life in presidential elections. Only in 1988 and 1992, I voted for the Democratic candidate for president, Michael Dukakis in '88, Bill Clinton in 1992. And might I say, I regret the vote for Bill Clinton. But here's the thing. In the year 2000, and I wasn't particularly keen on Al Gore either. There was some shenanigans going on with the ballots down in some of the Dade County and some in the area of in Florida. And Kathleen Harris, who is a Republican, and she was the Secretary of State in Florida, involved that with that position being involved with Board of Elections procedures, laws, guidelines. She oversaw that. The governor of Georgia, the governor of Florida at that time was Governor Jeb Bush, the brother of George W. Bush. The U.S. Supreme Court leaned to the right over the years of Reagan and Bush 1 appointees to the court. So there was a collaboration to deny Al Gore and Joe Lieberman the presidency and vice presidency. And the Supreme Court basically selected George W. Bush and Dick Cheney to lead our country when George W. Bush was sworn as our president in the year 2001. Now, I did not like George W. Bush, and that's an understatement. And even now, in spite of what happened today, I will still argue in a lot of cases that I thought that George W. Bush was still worse than Donald Trump. Why do I say that? And some lefties and liberals going to be like, oh, you can't really mean that. Well, I do, because 500,000 people in Iraq died for a action against the United States resulting in 9/11 that was not committed by the government of Iraq. The United States invaded a country that did not invade us over links to Osama bin Laden, which was bullshit. Anybody who has a basic understanding of Middle East politics would know that Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden are two different kind of adversaries to the West. Osama bin Laden was a religious extremist whose view on Islam was very, very reactionary. Saddam Hussein was only a Muslim by affiliation. He was like the Christian that goes to church on Sunday and for the rest of the week, whatever. Very secular. He was a dictator. He was a secular thug. The difference between Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden is that in spite of the shit that Saddam Hussein did in Iraq, Christians were not persecuted. Women were not subjugated to dressing up in a hijab or a burqa. They were, by Western standards, had the same rights as men in society. And so to link Saddam Hussein with the Islamic jihadism of Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, was just wrong. And anybody who understands basic Middle East politics would know that. But the neocons used the religious right here to whip us all into a frenzy of war. So, yes, I say George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were far worse than Donald Trump and Mike Pence. But I'm telling you, what Donald Trump did today, he certainly is an angel's whisper away from being just as much of a piece of shit as George W. Bush. As I said, I am during the Bush years, and I'm gonna tell you, I was opposed to George W. Bush. I was actually going to protest almost every weekend, every other weekend back in those days. And thing about it is, Trump's handling of COVID caused a lot of problems in this country. Poor handling. He's not the only one. I mean, it was the state governors from both parties, people from both parties in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate. I mean, our politicians in general, including Donald Trump, handled this badly, especially when you compare how they handle COVID in other countries. I mean, New Zealand's government, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, there is no more COVID over there. We're stuck with COVID probably for the next several years, even with the vaccine and even with everybody wearing masks and doing what they're supposed to do. And with the layoffs and the economic insecurity that's taken place because of this. So, I mean, and so we had a lot of deaths that didn't need to take place. But let me get back to what I was talking about. This insurrection, you compare the reaction of Trump supporters and Donald Trump to the actions of Hillary Clinton and her supporters in 2016 when Trump lost. Now, I personally thought that Hillary Clinton and many of her supporters acted like little children when Donald Trump won. I'm not pro-Trump, but I thought that they acted like children, triggered, screaming, having temper tantrums and everything. It was kind of embarrassing. But Hillary Clinton and many of her supporters were adults compared to Donald Trump and this section of Trump supporters that engaged in this insurrection against the U.S. government. The Hillary Clinton and her supporters did not turn violent. This crowd did. Remember, Governor Whitmore, I believe that's her name, in Michigan. There was a plot to go in and to kidnap her, possibly kill her. Gertrude Whitmore, I believe is her name. And we get to hear from Fox News and Talk Radio, One American News Network, and Newsmax, and all these right wing talk shows on radio and on social media, and they're all entitled to their propaganda. They got their right, but I got a right to call them out on it. They hear them, they act like, oh, you're with Black Lives Matter, or you're Antifa, or you're a Democrat, you're automatically with Black Lives Matter, Antifa. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people get Black Lives Matter wrong, and they think that Black Lives Matter is a black supremacist organization. It is not. And the only problem I have with Black Lives Matter is maybe some of the supporters get a little bit too worked up when a thoughtful conservative white person may say, well, all lives matter. And that's the only problem. That's the only time I will get a little perturbed with some of the supporters of Black Lives Matter, because at least when a white conservative, if they're saying all lives matter, they're pretty much not condoning police violence, and they kind of think they're mistaken to think it means black supremacy. That's why they say it as a reflex. I would not jump down their cases too much, because I would tell them, usually when I run across people like that, I'll tell them, well, Black Lives Matter really means all lives matter, because no lives are going to matter until Black Lives Matter. And it means that there's a problem with police repression against minorities, particularly Black and brown people, when it comes to law enforcement. Because it is, I don't know, and I'm not one of those people that call people racist loosely, but there is a criminal justice racial bias that takes place against people of color. If no matter what economic background somebody comes from, who may be African American or Latino, whatever, if somebody's driving around in what they think is the wrong part of town, the police is going to always make an assumption and always assume the worst. And that's a problem. And that is a problem. And the way that the police conduct themselves, again, it is a problem. And I have seen police brutality done against people of color in the past. And I'm not saying this to be condescending or win left wing points, virtue signaling points, or what have you. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking from the truth of my heart, what I have seen over the years. But let me get back to what I was saying. Had Black Lives Matter or Antifa acted this way, if Donald Trump would have won the election and they would have tried to storm the chambers of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate up in Capitol Hill the way that this small faction of Trump supporters did earlier today, and you saw how gently law enforcement were. And I'm not one of those people that I'm not saying shoot them down and all of that. But had it been Black Lives Matter, and had it been Antifa, or had it been, what people think are a bunch of little college age, purple hair, anorexic social justice warriors doing this, you'd be hearing the right wing talking about using the Insurrection Act and blasting them away and shooting them all down. And they would be demanding that. That's where the double standard is. And no, I'm not saying that the U.S. government should go and blast away these people. I'm just saying that there is a double standard, and that is what I'm saying. But here's the problem: the irony of the double standard reaches into the issues of free speech and guns. And what I mean by this is that to this small section of Trump supporters that invaded the halls of Congress. Listen, y'all are the ones claiming that the government's trying to take away my firearm. And I am not a fan of gun control myself. I part company with a lot of people on the left on the issue of gun control, and I have my leftist reasons for being a Second Amendment absolutist. Gun manufacturing companies are unionized. I don't want to see another unionized job disappear. I do think that most people own guns for their own protection, and I do not think that guns are the problem of crime. I think that income inequality is. I am a free speech absolutist, as I claim, as I said earlier. The thing about it is that this is going to make sensible people in the political discourse. Whether you're on the left, and I think being on the left is reasonable, or whether you're a bland milquetoast Democrat, or if you're a bland milquetoast Republican, or even a conservative Republican that's kind of reasonable, you're going to make this section of people clamor for gun control over this kind of crap. You're your worst enemy. You're also going to make them favor censorship and cracking down on what people would deem as hate speech. And, and while people, and some of the people who are to my left are like, don't have a problem with shutting up people on the right, the problem with censorship, and I say this for selfish reasons, it ends up biting the left in the ass. This is why I will always defend free speech, including speech I find most objectionable. You can't tell by looking at me, but I am a person of color too. I'm half Puerto Rican. I may not look it, but I'm half Hispanic myself. And the point I'm trying to make is that I would defend the free speech of even something as odious as white nationalists marching down the street, as long as they're not harming anybody. That gets me in trouble with people on the left. I joined the ACLU because I support free speech, and my position on that is the same as the ACLU's official line when it comes to free speech. It includes defending the free speech of hate groups, but hate groups have no right to inflict violence. They have a right to exist. They have a right to for their own fucked up opinions and to even spout it if they like. They don't have a right to harm anybody. So I'm a free speech absolutist. And the thing about it is, if the left cheers silencing those that they disagree with on the right, especially the further right they are, it comes back to bite the left in the ass. You take BDS, for example, boycott, disinvestment, sanctions against Israel. Several states have started to criminalize BDS, and down in Texas, you can't get hurricane relief unless you sign a loyalty oath to Israel. What the fuck is that about? What the fuck is that about? I mean, I personally don't support BDS for my own reasons. I think that instead of boycotting Israel, I would urge people to buy stuff from Palestine, Palestinians, help with their economies, help with their community. I take an even-handed approach on that issue. But that's another subject for another time. But I oppose the U.S. government silencing people's right to boycott. If you want to boycott products from Israel, that is your right. If you want to boycott products from China, that is your right. If you want to boycott products of, let's mention a country that doesn't piss anybody off, fucking Norway. If you gotta think against Norway, you don't want to buy shit from Norway, that's your right, and you shouldn't be criminalized over it. Free speech is in danger all the time, and you got people from both sides accusing each other of trying to silence one or the other. And the point is, it's actually true that both there are sections of people on the left and the right who are trying to silence each other. I acknowledge there are people on the left and the right that wants to protect free speech for everyone. But you got to be careful. There are some of those on the right that beat their chest and they're like, I'm a free speech warrior. Rah! They're not. They're not. I mean, I heard Rush Limbaugh call for silencing people he disagreed with over the years. Mark Levin. I've heard Sean Hannity. I mean, they have called for silencing them. They may not think they are calling for silencing them, but they have. And for those who hate the ACLU on the right, I challenge you to name an issue dealing with free speech that they are opposed to. Let me get back to this. The problem that the MAGAs, this section, and pretty much anybody on the right have, it isn't African Americans, it isn't Latinos, it isn't the media, although I do have my opinions on the media. And when some of these people said fake news today in Washington, D.C., they might not be incorrect about the fake news. I kind of think there's a lot of fake news out there as well. It isn't women's rights. It isn't the LGBTQ community causing your problems. It isn't Muslims. It isn't George Soros and the Jewish question. It isn't any of these things. What the problem is for those white folks and those who are African American and those, anybody, Latinos, everybody. And I'm speaking from a class reductionist perspective, which piss off the left. Some people on the left anyway. But the problem is income inequality. Income inequality it doesn't discriminate. You have powerful corporate interests that has fucked over the American people for the past 40 years. This is why less than 10% of the workforce belong to a union. And notice that when unions have declined over the years, so has the middle. That's just class warfare you're waging. Yes, it fucking is. Income equality is a problem, not minorities. Treason. Well, really what happened with this small section of insurrectionists today amount to treason. And it was as if they wanted to look at Donald Trump and declare him El Presidente, the new Augusto Pinochet. And for those who are not in the know, on September the 11th, yes, September the 11th, 1973, a military coup in Chile transpired with the help of the American CIA that toppled a democratically elected president in that country, Salvador Allende. General Augusto Pinochet, who was the leader of the Chilean military, took over. And from 1973 till 1990, he oppressed the country. You know what he did to dissidents, left wing, the left wing in the country? Trade unions were banned. The mainline center left Socialist Party was banned. The Communist Party was banned. Trotskyists were banned. The entire left were banned. They were put in torture camps. And when they hopped aboard the helicopter, it was usually their last ride. That was the method of execution. Dissidents, people who were against the government, were placed into helicopters, flown in the air, and thrown off the helicopters. They fell to their deaths. That is what happened. And the thing about it is, for 17 years, the people of Chile put up with that. 1990, Chile became a democracy again after worldwide international pressures. Now, to Mitch McConnell's credit, and I'm no fan of Mitch McConnell. I'm glad he's no longer Senate Majority Leader. He says that you got to respect the rule of law and the elections. He recognized that Joe Biden won the election. Mitt Romney said the same thing. Even Kelly Loeffler down in Georgia, that was defeated by Raphael Warnock, acknowledged that Joe Biden is the winner of the election. Now, personally, I'd rather have Bernie Sanders be sworn in. I got an axe to grind with Joe Biden, too. But you know what? There is a rule of law. And I'm not being arrested. I'm not being handcuffed by Joe Biden. I don't think I'm going to be put in jail by Joe Biden or Kamala Harris because I supported Bernie Sanders in the primaries. And I didn't think that my opposition to Donald Trump was going to put me on handcuffs in prison. Y'all really had to do that. Go there, didn't you? The Republican Party could fracture of assault. On the one hand, I'm happy that the Republican Party could fracture, but I'm fair. I would like to see the Democratic Party fracture too. And there is a civil war already in the Democratic Party, and Donald Trump is going to cause a civil war within the Republican Party, whatever happens to him in the next few weeks. And it's entirely possible that we may have a President Pence for a few weeks before Joe Biden is sworn in. I think it's kind of funny that he unfollowed Twitter. But we with this COVID, with the deaths and the lockdowns and people losing their jobs and losing access to health care, I mean, it's sad what happens, and we need to heal. We do. And just it's sad what happens. I mean, this come to this. And I'm concerned that we haven't seen the last of this. And just hope that we can find a way to heal. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. You feel free to take this content on this channel and share it if you like. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you that if you are passionate about something, um, you have a platform and you feel passionate about something, utilize it. If you don't have a platform and you're passionate about something, create that platform, utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I am American social democracy, peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.